Welcome back to another weekly watch list. Hope you guys had an amazing weekend and hope you guys are enjoying your Sunday. In today's video, we're going to be analyzing the stock market using the strat, reviewing the economic data and earnings for the week, and breaking down a few tickers with actionable setups to help you prepare for the week ahead. As always, if you enjoy these videos and if you want more breakdowns and insights, please make sure to hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss an update. All right, so let's get into the watch list. Now, before we take a look at some charts, let's take a look at the economic calendar for this week. It's very important to note that on Wednesday, FOMC minutes on Wednesday at 2 p.m. and you also have NVIDIA going to be releasing its earning after hours on Wednesday. Now, we know that NVIDIA is the most valuable company in terms of market cap, so it has the ability to move the market one way or the other depending on what the earnings is. Now, usually NVIDIA doesn't meet its anticipated earnings move, so just keep that in mind. But if it were to beat its anticipated move, it could move the market up or down. Now, on Thursday, we have initial jobless claims that's going to be released. We know that the government is no longer shut down. And we also have the September jobs data that's going to be released on Thursday. Now, it's funny, right? It's November, but why is it that we're getting the September jobs data? But remember, the government was shut down, so we didn't actually get that number or October data. So we're going to be getting September's. We already know that October data is not going to be released. So just keep in mind that we are going to be getting that report, the September report on Thursday. The market could gap up or gap down depending on what that number is. We have more Fed speakers on Thursday, and we have PMI and consumer sentiment that's going to be released on Friday. And to top it all off, it is OPEX week. So this is going to be a very interesting week considering the news, considering NVIDIA ER. And if we take a look at the charts, we can see that they're probably waiting for something to happen. Now, why do I say that? Let's take a look at SPY. Now, last week, we didn't do anything. And we started off the week bullish off that 2-2 reversal on the daily time frame from Friday. But then on Thursday and Friday, we got that move to the downside for us to end up closing as a doji on the week. Now let's take a look at the daily time frame. We are still in a bullish market structure. Higher low, and last Friday we put in another higher low. So at this point, nothing has happened. The structure is still intact. If you are a bull, you're looking for a 2-2 reversal on the daily time frame back to the upside. Now, but if you're a bear, you're looking for that 2-2 continuation to the downside. Now, unfortunately, or fortunately, however you want to look at it, if you trigger a 2-2 down on the day, you will be triggering 2 down on the week. So keep that in mind. If you trigger a 2-2 down on the day, that will be triggering a 2-1-2 down on the weekly chart, and the target for that is 2 down on the 2-week and a 3-2-2 reversal on the 3-week time frame. Now, why am I bringing the 3-week time frame into play? Because we have new 3-week candles that are going to be opening up this week. And whether people like it or not, you have a potential CCRP that's brewing on the 3-week chart. So those if-then statements, if you trigger a 2-1-2 down on the weekly time frame, you have the ability to not only trigger 2 down on the 2-week, but to trigger the CCRP on the 3-week. And we know that inevitable retracement or pullback will be occurring at that point. So just keep that in mind. But if we trigger a 2-1-2 up on the weekly time frame, you do have a gap to the upside, and we would be looking for a new all-time high. Let's see what they do with this daily. Are we going to trigger a 2-2 reversal back up and attempt to target the 680 gap? Or are we going to trigger a 2-2 down on the day and go for that 2 down on the week and 3-2-2 reversal on a 3-week time frame? We have a new 3-day candle, 3-week candle, 5-week candle, and new 9-week candles that are going to be opening up. So make sure you are looking at potential actionable signals on those time frames. Now, let's take a look at a couple of the sectors that we're going to pay attention to this week. And the first sector I'm going to be paying attention to is going to be XLE. Now, first of all, phenomenal move by energy last week. We talked about the potential 1-3-2 up on a weekly chart, and hopefully you guys were able to take advantage. The team was able to grab some DVN and XLE calls, and we are holding them for a potential swing to the upside. Why? Because currently XLE has full time frame continuity to the upside, setting up for a potential bullish move. If you look at the 2-week chart, the 2-week chart is already enforced. It is also a bullish candle on the 3-week, setting up for potential 2-2 continuation on the 3-week time frame. The 5-week time frame is a failed 2 down on the 5-week, setting up for a 2-2 reversal on the 5-week back to the upside, and you would be targeting, if you trigger, that would be your target right there. Well, guess what? That target happens to be 2-1-2 up on the 3-month chart. So even though XLE has had a great move to the upside, you're coming off of consolidation. So in reality, that 92.91 is the minimum that we are looking for to trigger that 212 up on a 3-month to potentially get to the gap fill and which gets filled at $94.13. I am looking for continuation in energy. So far, we've got that defensive rotation. Let's get if we can get that 3-2 up on the daily time frame. After energy is going to be XLV. Again, another sector that we had on the watch list last week because of that inside week, and it triggered the 212 reversal on the weekly chart, and we got that in-force breakout to the upside. Shout out to those of you that took XLV tickers. We took ABBV and we were able to get over 400% on this trade. Just for the mere fact that XLV had the potential 212 up on a weekly, which set up, as you all know, that 132 up on a 10-week chart that we talked about. It's beautiful seeing price just do what price is supposed to do. After XLV, we're going to be looking at XLP. Potentially setting up for a continuation or a move back down. One thing that I am noticing is that you are coming into this what was once demand and now it could be supply, so potential SR flip back to the downside. Or if we actually get that follow through, you can potentially set up for a gap fill at $77.90 that gets filled at $78.43. Right now you have a potential 322 continuation to the downside or a 322 reversal back to the upside. If you trigger a 322 reversal back up, you would be targeting 2 up on the week and then potentially that gap. But if you trigger a 322 down, then you would be targeting that gap fill to the downside. Now, I kind of have a bullish bias for XLP. I would love for it to get that continuation that we saw last week, but let's see what happens. We know we have those imbalances to the downside that they could possibly tap into. After XLP is going to be XLC, and I'm liking this based off the higher time frames. You triggered a 132 down on the 2-week chart, but it did not go in force yet. So if you go in force this week, because the 2-week candle was still live, you could potentially target that low right here. Now, if we look at the higher time frames for XLC, like the 3-week chart, you are outside 3-week, potentially setting up for a 3-2 down on the 3-week chart. 5-week chart is a double shooter on the 5-week, and a 2-2 down on the 5-week sets up all these gap fills to the downside. So let's see if we really do get that retracement or that pullback for the market. I would be looking for XLC to get that follow through to the downside. The monthly is already in force by triggering the 212 down on the month. So we already have a strat combo that tells us our target for the monthly participant is down here until proven otherwise. Now, let's look at a couple of tickers that I'm going to be paying attention to this week that have actionable setups. Now, the first ticker that I'm going to be paying attention to is going to be Costco. Now, Costco, if you take a look at the 3-week chart, and I apologize for the lines, but you have a double inside 3-week. Not only that, you have a double inside 3-day coming off of a 3 candle. So we have just been consolidating for Costco, and we know it's only a matter of time for Costco to break out. And for this example, I'm going to show you with a blank chart so you can see what Costco has been doing and what it could potentially do. So right now, you've just been consolidating and you have just been tightening up in this symmetrical triangle. If you look at the 3-day time frame, you have a 311 on the 3-day. If you look at the 3-week time frame, you have a double inside 3-week. We know Costco is setting up for a big move. It's just dependent on what side it wants to break out. Do we get that double inside breakout to the upside or a double inside breakout to the downside? Let's see if XLP lets us know or helps us out with that. If we trigger a 3112 up on the 3-day time frame, don't forget that would be a double inside bar breakout, and you would be potentially setting up for 2 times the expansion if it's an upside breakout. Of course, if it's a downside breakout, then you can potentially get 2 times the downside move, and this is because you're coming out of a double inside 3-day. Don't forget the double inside 3-week. After Costco is going to be DLTR. DLTR has an inside 3-day setup. Now, we've been in this trade for quite a while, ever since we triggered that 3-2 up on a 3-week time frame. We want to see if we can get that continuation. If we take a look at the 5-week chart, you have a strong candle close on the 5-week, possibly setting up for a 2-2 continuation on the 5-week. If you look at the 9-week time frame, you have a 2-2 reversal setting up on the 9-week, and if you trigger that 9-week chart to the upside, the target for that is all the way at that 118. Now, DLTR is already 2 up on the month. It's just a matter of it continuing in force and going to its monthly target, and that monthly target is going to be this candle high, which is at 112.13. We have gaps to the upside, so let's see if DLTR wants to trigger the 2-2 continuation on the daily, fill this gap, and then we would be looking for continuation to trigger 2 up on the week to now get to the second gap fill. After DLTR is going to be CVX. Now CVX, the weekly time frame, is what I'm most interested in. You have build up, build up, build up, hammers, potentially triple hammers, and now you have an outside week. Full time frame continuity to the upside. If you trigger a 3-2 up on the weekly chart, the target for that is going to be 2 up on the month. Now, let's take a look at the monthly. The monthly is also coming off of a hammer. So, remember, a hammer is a bullish signal. If that 3-2 up on the weekly can get to its target and now you can trigger 2 up on the month off of the hammer, you could potentially target previous quarter high. If we take a look at previous quarter high, you are coming off of an inside quarter. So CVX is potentially setting up for a move all the way up through this gap fill. So you want to look for a potential swing, especially if XLE is looking like it wants to continue to that 94 level. I would be looking for CVX to potentially get to that quarterly high, which is going to be at 161.86. After CVX is going to be SHW. SHW on the weekly time frame, you went outside week to the downside, possibly setting up for a 3-2 down on the weekly chart with full time frame continuity to the downside. 2-week chart already triggered. You triggered off of a shooter. The 3-week chart is a shooter. You might trigger a 2-2 reversal on the 3-week to the downside. If you take a look at the 4-week chart, the 4-week chart is a 3-1 on the 4-week and you're still live, so you could potentially trigger a 3-2 down on the 4-week. If you take a look at the monthly is possibly setting up for a 3-1-2 see you later on the month. And then if you take a look at the quarterly, you potentially have a 2-2 reversal on the quarter. Now, there is this demand zone here that I am paying attention to with these wicks on the quarterly time frame, but I'd like to see if we trigger 2-2 down on the quarter, if we can get to this gap fill at 325.17 to 322.30. After SHW is going to be Pepsi. Now, Pepsi, really liking where we are right now. Notice that we consolidated here, displaced, and now we are right back at the area where we consolidated. This would be your market structure shift, and we are currently holding that area. If we look at a higher time frame, the weekly chart, you went outside week, possibly setting up for a CCRP back to the upside with a trend line break. So a trend line break 3. If you can get that 3-2 up on the weekly time frame, you are setting up for a potential gap fill play from 147 to 147.55, then 148.66 to 150.12. After Pepsi is going to be HON. Had a nice breakout last week, but now you tapped into OTE, possibly setting up for a continuation or a reversal, however you want to call it, back to the upside. Looking for a potential 3-2-2 reversal on the daily time frame. And if you get to the target, that would be your 2 up on the week trigger. So let's see if we can get that 3-2 up on the weekly chart for HON. You're still holding OTE. And then the next target for that after that 3-2 up would be potentially a 3-1-2 up on the 2-week chart. So watching HON above 199.56 for a potential gap fill trade, and then looking for a potential 3-2 up on a week. Last but not least is going to be Microsoft. Now Microsoft, very interesting. You have an inside week setup, either setting up for a 2-1-2 reversal back to the upside or 2-1-2 continuation back down. Now you're at the bottom of a broadening formation. And if we look at Friday, you had a nice bullish candle on Friday, possibly setting up for a 2-2 reversal back up. Now, the 2-2 reversal back up, the target for that would be 2 up on the week, which coincides with the 2-2 reversal on the weekly time frame. So if you were to trigger 2 up on the week, then the next target would be that 515.55 to 517.03. Then you would be trying to expand through this broadening formation. So watch Microsoft. Let's see if we can get that 2-2 reversal back on the daily, back to the upside to trigger the 2-1-2 reversal back on the weekly chart. All right, so those are going to be the tickers on the watch list. I do have an extended list of tickers that I'm also going to be paying attention to this week. If you want to check out that list as well as a detailed analysis for all of these trade setups, make sure to check out the link in the bio to join the team. Besides that, don't forget, y'all, it is OPEX week. We do have a bunch of news, catalysts, NVIDIA ER that we have to pay attention to. Make sure to mark your triggers. Make sure to label your strat combos. Otherwise, let's have a great week, and I'll catch you all later.